Today, we're unpacking one of the most counterintuitive growth stories in AI. It's the playbook for a company called Gamma, and it's a wild story about how a seemingly terrible idea ended up becoming a massive, massive success.
Just imagine this for a second. You're a first-time founder. You're pitching your heart out from this tiny little space between your kitchen and your laundry room, and an investor hits you with that. But it gets worse. He then says, "You are never going to succeed," and just hangs up on you. That is exactly what happened to Gamma's co-founder, Grant Lee.
And yet, fast forward to today, and that worst idea is now a company valued at over $2 billion. It's pulling in over $100 million in annual recurring revenue. So you have to ask, what on earth happened between that brutal rejection and this incredible outcome?
That's the question we're going to answer. This isn't just a feel-good story. It's a practical playbook of really unconventional lessons on product, growth, and building a team. So let's dive in.
First up, let's talk about the holy grail, product-market fit. Gamma's story here is, well, it's a powerful warning about the danger of celebrating way too early and mistaking that initial buzz for a real, sustainable business. So back in August 2022, they had what looked like an absolute dream launch on Product Hunt. You know, the popular site for finding new stuff. They won everything. Product of the day, product of the week, and even product of the month. Signups went through the roof. By every conventional metric, this was a home run. But then the momentum just died. It completely flattened out. The growth wasn't building on itself.
And this is where the team's honesty with themselves was absolutely critical. I mean, they could have fooled themselves, right? Maybe started throwing money at ads to keep the numbers looking good. But instead, they admitted something really fundamental was wrong. That true organic word-of-mouth machine, it just wasn't there. The product wasn't growing by itself.
So they went back to the drawing board with a whole new philosophy, and it's summed up perfectly by this brilliant analogy from Grant Lee. Stop overwhelming your new users. Just focus on delivering one single magical aha moment. They decided they were going to rebuild the entire first 30 seconds of the product to be so good users just couldn't help but tell their friends about it.
And this was a huge gamble, a real bet the company moment. They spent 4 months completely revamping that initial experience. And the result? It was explosive. They went from a few hundred signups a day to thousands, then 5,000, 10,000, and pretty soon over 20,000 signups a day, all with zero marketing spend. Now that is what real product market fit actually looks like.
Okay, so they found product market fit. How did they pour fuel on that fire? Well, this brings us to lesson 2, how to actually engineer virality. And it all started with a single, strategic, and let's be honest, kind of spicy tweet from the founder himself.
See, when they relaunched, they didn't just go back to Product Hunt. Instead, they crafted this deliberately provocative tweet. It was designed to get a reaction, to make people stop scrolling and engage. The goal here wasn't just to announce a new feature. It was to start a debate and to cut through all the noise online.
And boy, did it work. I mean, it worked better than they ever could have imagined. The tweet got enough traction that it caught the eye of Paul Graham, one of the most influential people in tech, the co-founder of Y Combinator. He commented on it, and that one single comment acted like a giant megaphone, sending a huge wave of traffic their way. It's a perfect illustration of the power of founder-led marketing.
So a viral tweet is great, but you can't build a company on one-off moments. How did they build on this momentum? Well, their next growth engine is one of the most tactical and, frankly, fascinating parts of their story. A completely unique approach to influencer marketing that anyone can learn from. You know, most companies think influencer marketing means paying a couple of huge creators with millions of followers a ton of money to just read a script. Gamma did the exact opposite. They focused on finding thousands of micro-influencers and then empowered them to tell the Gamma story in their own authentic voice.
They got this because they understood the power law of influence. You simply cannot predict which post is going to go viral. A tiny fraction of creators, we're talking less than 10%, are going to drive almost all of the results. So the only way to really win is to cast a super wide net, instead of making a few huge, expensive bets.
And here's the actual process they followed. It literally started with the founder, Grant, manually onboarding the first influencers himself, treating them like they were part of the team. They gave them brand assets, sure, but never a script. Then they started with a small test budget, just 10 to 20 grand a month, and they looked for what they called echo chambers, like the educator community, where a single recommendation could spread like wildfire. Once they found a niche that was working, they just doubled down. Now, this kind of explosive external growth would have absolutely broken most companies. So, this final lesson is all about the internal engine they built, the operational philosophies that allowed a tiny team of just 30 people to serve over 50 million users. It's pretty incredible.
A huge piece of this was their speed. Get this, they built an insane user feedback loop. An idea that someone had in the morning could be prototyped, put in front of 20 real potential users on a platform like user testing, and have actionable feedback by that same evening. Think about how much wasted effort that saves.
They also totally rethought their org structure. Instead of a traditional management layer, they use what they call a player-coach model. What that means is, every leader is still an individual contributor. They're still doing the work. This keeps the team flat, super agile, and it makes sure that the people making the big strategic decisions are still deeply, deeply connected to the actual product.
And their hiring philosophy was just as disciplined. They hired, in their own words, painfully slowly. They prioritized versatile generalists over people who were hyper-specialized. And when they found someone truly exceptional, they bet big on them. And the result of that patient approach? 5 years later, they still have 100% retention of their first 10 employees. That kind of continuity is a massive, unspoken advantage.
So, let's wrap this all up. Let's distill the core lessons from the Gamma Playbook, because so much of their success came from doing the exact opposite of what conventional startup wisdom tells you to do.
So, instead of trusting those flashy launch metrics, they hunted for real, organic word of mouth. Instead of avoiding controversy, they used it to cut through the noise. They completely ignored celebrity influencers to build a scalable machine with thousands of micro-creators. And they resisted all that pressure to hire fast, choosing instead to build a lean, incredibly high-impact team.
Ultimately, the story of Gamma shows that the best growth strategies aren't just copied from some template. They're invented from first principles. It really challenges all of us to question the standard advice and find our own unique path. So the question I want to leave you with is this. What's the dumb idea that everyone else is dismissing that you are going to bet on?